If convicted, the two women may pay with their lives.
Well, one thing is clear, this is one of the most bizarre murder plots in decades.
On the morning of February 13th, 2017, a 25-year-old Indonesian woman named Siti Aisyah walked into Terminal 2 of Kuala Lumpur International Airport, believing she was about to become famous. She had a small container of what she thought was baby oil on her hands. A producer named Mr. Chang had told her the rules. Walk up behind the target, cover his eyes, smear the oil across his face, laugh, apologize, run. She had done this at least a dozen times in the preceding weeks, in shopping malls in Kuala Lumpur, in hotel lobbies in Cambodia. Each time, a man behind a camera had filmed the reaction. Each time, she had been paid $100 to $200 US. It was more money than she had ever earned. She did not know that the oil on her hands was not baby oil. She did not know that a Vietnamese woman she had never met, standing 40 feet away across the terminal, had a second substance on her hands that, when combined with the first, became the deadliest chemical weapon ever engineered by a human being. She did not know that the middle-aged man checking in for the AirAsia flight to Macau was the estranged half-brother of a dictator. She believed she was on a Japanese prank show. She was an hour away from international news. This is the story of how the most isolated state on the planet turned two ordinary women into weapons. How a murder plotted by a regime with a history of overseas assassinations was executed by migrants who did not know they were committing it. How a nerve agent banned by international treaty ended up on a stranger's doorknob, a stranger's face, in the middle of a public terminal. It is a story about the four men who fled the country in the hours that followed, about the two women who did not, and about the specific cruelty of choosing people for a killing because they would not understand what they had done until it was too late to refuse. It is a story in which one side paid, and the other simply went home. To understand why Kim Jong-nam was standing at that check-in counter at 9 in the morning, you have to go back 30 years. He was the oldest son of Kim Jong-il, the second leader of North Korea. For most of his early life, he was raised as the HER. He was a prince of a country that presented itself as a worker's paradise and operated as a dynasty. He was educated in Switzerland. He spoke multiple languages. In the internal hierarchy of the Kim family, he was the one being prepared. In May 2001, he arrived at Narita International Airport in Tokyo, carrying a forged Dominican passport. The name on the document was Pang Xiong, which means fat bear in Mandarin. He was traveling with two women and a 4-year-old boy he identified as his son. He was asked where he was going. He told Japanese immigration officials, with what several witnesses described as unguarded honesty, that he wanted to visit Disneyland. The incident did not just embarrass the regime, it ended his candidacy. By 2003, he had been moved out of the succession line entirely. His younger half-brother Kim Jong-un, a man most of the world had never heard of, was elevated in his place. Jong-nam moved to Macau. He gave interviews to foreign journalists. He criticized the dynastic succession of power. He said that a third-generation Kim was not natural for a socialist state. Succession. Inside North Korea, these statements are not observations. They are treason. In 2012, there was a first attempt on his life. He survived it. He sent a letter to his half-brother, begging to be spared. "Please withdraw the order to punish me and my family," he wrote. "We have nowhere to hide. The Wall Street Journal would later report, citing former US officials, that Jong-un had been meeting with the CIA. It said he had been filmed abroad with an American intelligence officer. It said that on his last trip to Malaysia, he had spent several days on the resort island of Langkawi, meeting with a Korean-American man whose identity has never been disclosed. To back-channel Kim Jong-nam was not simply an exile. He was a rival bloodline with an American back-channel. Everything that happened in Terminal 2 on February 13th, 2017 was designed to close that channel permanently. What almost no one outside the intelligence community understood yet was that the people who would close it did not know whose channel they were closing. Siti Aisyah was 25 years old. She had grown up in Serang, a rural town in the Indonesian province of Banten, in a family that did not have money. She married young, she had a son, she divorced. She went to Malaysia for work, as millions of Southeast Asian women do, crossing a border to find employment that did not exist at home. She worked as a masseuse in a spa in Kuala Lumpur. The spa, by her own later account and by the accounts of those who investigated her case, offered services beyond massage. The word most frequently used by journalists was escort. She sent money home to her mother and her child. She told them she was working in a restaurant. In late 2016 and early 2017, something began happening on the streets of Kuala Lumpur. Men approached her. They said they were talent scouts. They said they were looking for Southeast Asian women who could participate in a new kind of entertainment. Prank videos for a Japanese or Chinese market in which the performer would surprise strangers and the reaction would be filmed. The money was extraordinary. 500 Malaysian ringgit per prank. 119 US dollars, more than she made in a night at the spa. She said yes. 600 miles away, in Hanoi, Doan Thi Huang was going through a similar conversation with a different man. She was 28. She had grown up in Nam Dinh, a province about 130 kilometers southeast of the Vietnamese capital, in a village where her father farmed and her family was known but not wealthy. She had tried to build a career in entertainment. She had auditioned for Vietnam Idol. She had been eliminated in the early rounds. She had moved to Hanoi. She had worked at various points in a clothing stall, in a clothing factory, in a bar where the accounts of what she did there vary depending on who is asked. She wanted to be seen. She had wanted it for years. When a man who introduced himself as a Japanese producer offered her a chance to appear in a reality prank show that might be broadcast internationally, she did not ask many questions. He paid her in cash. He promised more. Neither Siti nor Doan knew the other existed. They would not meet until the morning of the assassination. The men recruiting them were not Japanese. They were not Chinese. They were North Korean intelligence officers, operating under aliases in countries where North Korea could enter without a visa and where migrant women without protection were abundant. The recruitment was not accidental. It was a selection process. There were 4 of them. Their names, released by Malaysian police weeks after the attack, were Ri Ji Hyun, aged 33, Hong Song Hak, 34, Oh Jong Gil, 55, Ri Jae Nam, 57. To Siti and Doan, they were James, Mr. Y, Mr. Chang, Grandpa. They did not work as a single cell. They worked as 2 parallel operations, each targeting a different woman in different countries, with the same script. Each woman was handled independently. Each was told she was the star. Each believed the men around her were film producers or talent managers. Each was moved between cities, Kuala Lumpur, Phnom Penh, Hanoi, to add glamour to the offer and to separate her from anyone who might ask questions. The operational design was clean. If one of the women backed out at the last minute, the other could still deliver the kill. If one was intercepted, the other would remain a mystery. And because neither woman knew the other, neither could compromise the other in an interrogation. They could only confess to what they themselves had been told. What they had been told was that they were on a prank show. This is the detail that analysts would spend the next several years trying to fully process. The North Korean state did not need skilled assassins to kill Kim Jong-nam. It needed plausible deniability. It needed two women who, when arrested, would say exactly what they believed, that they had been tricked, that they thought it was a joke, that they had no idea who the man at the check-in counter was. A skilled assassin would have been traceable. A confused 25-year-old masseuse from Banton would be believed when she said she did not know. Hold on the implication of that sentence. The state did not need to deceive the investigators. It needed to deceive the women holding the weapon. The weapon was chosen with the same logic as the women. VX is a nerve agent classified as a weapon of mass destruction under the Chemical Weapons Convention. A dose the size of a grain of sugar, 30 micrograms absorbed through the skin, is enough to kill an adult. It attacks the nervous system, disrupts signals between nerves and muscles, and kills by paralysis of the diaphragm. Death arrives as suffocation. The chemistry was designed for deniability as well. VX can be manufactured as a binary weapon. Two precursor substances, each relatively harmless on its own, become lethal only when combined on contact. One substance was on Siti Aisha's hands. The other was on Doan Thi Huang's hands. If either woman had been caught alone, the material on her hands would have been difficult to identify, possibly impossible to prosecute. Only the combination on Kim Jong-nam's face and the trace residue left behind made the operation visible. The North Korean planners had engineered a kill in which the murder weapon did not exist until the moment of the murder. Between January and early February 2017, Siti Aisha was rehearsing a murder without knowing it. Mr. Chang moved her between locations, shopping malls in Kuala Lumpur and a hotel in Cambodia. Every training session followed the same structure: approach a stranger from behind, cover his eyes, smear oil across his face, laugh, and leave. She was paid each time. She was told she was doing well. She was told the real performance would be at an airport, a famous stunt that would launch her career. Security cameras captured the rehearsals: a taxi driver on a bench, a man in a hotel lobby. Malaysian investigators would later retrieve the footage frame by frame. In Hanoi, Doan Thi Huang was being trained on a parallel track. Her handler pointed out men in crowds. She approached them from behind. She rubbed cloth across their faces. Then she ran. Neither woman was ever introduced to the other. Neither was told the name of the target. On February 12th, the night before the assassination, Siti celebrated her upcoming success. She went to a club in Kuala Lumpur. She took photographs. She posted on social media. 12 hours later, she walked into Terminal 2. The countdown to the target's death had already begun, and no one had told her she was the timer. Kim Jong-nam arrived at Kuala Lumpur International Airport before 9 in the morning. He was scheduled on Air Asia Flight D7502 to Macau, where his wife Lee Hye-kyung and his daughter Kim Sol-hui were living. Departure at 10:50. He was traveling on a passport in the name of Kim Chol. He was carrying a backpack that contained, among other items, small vials of atropine, an antidote used to counteract nerve agent exposure. Whether he suspected what was coming or carried the antidote as a general precaution given the nature of his life is a question that has never been definitively answered. He did not have time to use it. At the check-in area, 2 women approached him from different directions. Security cameras recorded the sequence in fragments, from multiple angles, in silence. Doan Thi Huang came from behind. She wore a white shirt marked LOL in block letters across the front. She approached quickly. She placed both hands over his face from behind, smearing the second chemical across his eyes and mouth. Siti Aisha came from the opposite direction, moving at a steady walk. She covered his eyes with her hands briefly and then withdrew, the oil on her palms transferring to his skin. The entire encounter lasted less than 3 seconds. Both women turned and walked quickly towards separate bathrooms to wash their hands. They did not look back. Kim Jong-nam stood frozen for a moment. Then he turned and walked toward the airport's customer service counter, carrying his luggage, his pace already uneven. He reported that 2 women had rubbed something on his face. He asked for help. He was directed to the clinic inside the terminal. He never reached it. Airport CCTV would later show him sitting in a chair, hunched forward, eyes glazing. Medical staff arrived. They found him sweating, unable to respond clearly, his blood pressure collapsing. He was carried to an ambulance. He died on the way to Putrajaya Hospital. Between the moment the 2 women touched his face and the moment his heart stopped, approximately 15 to 20 minutes had passed. The pathologist who conducted his autopsy, Mohammed Shah Mahmood, would later testify in a Malaysian court that VX was the sole cause of death. His lungs, brain, liver, and spleen had all been affected. His diaphragm had seized. He had suffocated in a crowded airport, surrounded by people, 2 hours before his flight home. Within 4 hours of Kim Jong-nam's death, the 4 senior North Korean operatives were gone. They did not leave together. Ri Ji-hyun, Hong Song-hak, Oh Jong-gil, and Ri Jae-nam each boarded separate flights out of Kuala Lumpur, routing through Jakarta, Dubai, and Vladivostok before converging on Pyongyang. They were on North Korean soil before Kim Jong-nam's body had been formally identified. Malaysian authorities issued Interpol red notices. North Korea ignored them. Pyongyang never acknowledged that the 4 men existed. It never admitted that a state operation had taken place in a Malaysian airport. What it did do was publicly demand the immediate return of the body, insisting the victim was a private citizen named Kim Chol, and refusing to confirm he was Kim Jong-il's son. When Malaysia refused to release the body without an autopsy, North Korea did something almost no modern state had done since the end of the Cold War. It took hostages. 9 Malaysian citizens inside North Korea, diplomats, their families, and business representatives were prevented from leaving. They were not formally arrested. They were simply not allowed to board flights. For 3 weeks, Malaysia had the body. North Korea had the Malaysians. Neither side used those words in public. Both understood the exchange that would end it. On March 30th, 2017, Kim Jong-nam's body was released to North Korea in exchange for the safe return of the 9 Malaysian citizens. No investigation of the 4 agents was ever conducted by Pyongyang. No cooperation was offered. No apology was issued. The men who had ordered the killing were home. The two women who had carried it out without knowing were in a Malaysian prison, facing the death penalty. On March 1st, 2017, Siti Aisha and Doan Thi Huang appeared publicly for the first time since their arrests, charged with the murder of a man they had not been told existed. They were transported under armed guard to a high court in Shah Alam. They wore bulletproof vests. They were kept in separate rooms. They were told that if convicted, the sentence was mandatory execution by hanging. Their lawyers argued what both women had said from the first hour of their interrogation. They were recruited under false pretenses. They had been told they were performing pranks. They had no idea the substance on their hands was lethal. They had no idea who the man in the gray blazer was. The prosecution's case was straightforward. CCTV footage showed them approaching Kim Jong-nam from two different directions. It showed them applying substances to his face. It showed them leaving, separately, to wash their hands. The residue on their clothing was VX. The trial lasted 2 years. During that time, the diplomatic arithmetic behind the case shifted. Indonesia, a country of 270 million people with a foreign ministry that took its migrant workers seriously, began pressuring Malaysia directly. Presidential phone calls, back-channel requests, quiet warnings that a conviction of Siti Aisha might strain the bilateral relationship. On March 11, 2019, without a published explanation, the Malaysian Attorney General withdrew the murder charge against Siti. She was released that afternoon. She was flown to Jakarta on a private government jet and received at the State Palace by President Joko Widodo himself. On the tarmac, she said, "I am so happy. I did not expect this day." Doan Thi Huang stayed in prison. Her lawyers argued that the disparity was indefensible. 2 women, 1 assassination, identical roles. The Vietnamese government pressed, but Vietnam does not have the same leverage over Malaysia that Indonesia does. The trial resumed with only 1 defendant. On April 1st, 2019, prosecutors offered her a reduced charge, voluntarily causing injury with a dangerous weapon. She pleaded guilty. She was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months. On May 3rd, 2019, with credit for time served and good behavior, she walked out of prison wearing a white dress and carrying a small plastic bag of belongings. She flew to Hanoi. She was met by her father, Don Van Than, who had, according to relatives, been unable to sleep for most of the previous 2 years. "I love you all," she wrote in a public letter after her release. "Thank you for supporting me. Neither woman has ever been charged again with anything relating to the death of Kim Jong-nam. Neither of the 4 North Korean agents who ran the operation has ever been charged with anything, anywhere." In the years after her release, Siti Aisha returned to Serang and reunited with her son. The few interviews she gave repeated the same facts. She was used, she had not known, she was grateful to be alive. Doan Thi Huang returned to Nam Dinh. She eventually married. She told one Japanese interviewer that she thought about what happened every day. In 2020, the American filmmaker Ryan White released Assassins, a documentary built around both women's accounts. Its central argument was that Siti and Don were not killers in any meaningful legal or moral sense. They were tools. The 4 men who had used them were not mentioned in any criminal proceeding anywhere in the world. Kim Jong-nam's family scattered. His widow disappeared from public view in Macau. His daughter Sol Hui is understood to still be in the region. His son Kim Han-sol, the only direct adult male heir, of the Baekdu bloodline outside the inner circle of the North Korean state, was last publicly cited in a short video released days after his father's death, thanking an organization that had helped move his family to safety. According to South Korean and American reporting, he is now believed to be in the protective custody of the Central Intelligence Agency in an undisclosed location in the United States. His father was killed, in part, because of his family's contact with the CIA. His son survived because he was taken inside it. In Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un remains in power. His position has not weakened since 2017. It has strengthened. The assassination did not provoke sanctions. It did not trigger meaningful international isolation. The brief expulsion of the North Korean ambassador from Malaysia was reversed within a few years. The use of a weapon of mass destruction on foreign soil passed into the historical record as an episode. A strange episode, with two women in it, one of them wearing a shirt that said LOL. The assassination of Kim Jong-nam is sometimes described as bizarre. The word is not wrong. There are elements in it: the prank show, the LOL shirt, the forged Dominican passport, the nerve agent in a crowded terminal. They read like the premise of a film. But bizarre is not the most accurate word. The most accurate word is engineered. Someone inside a planning office in Pyongyang looked at the problem of eliminating a rival with American intelligence contacts and concluded that the solution was not to send trained assassins who could be traced back to the state. The solution was to find two women whose lives had already been written in the margins: a divorced masseuse from an Indonesian village, a failed singer from a Vietnamese farm town, and to turn their hopes into a delivery mechanism. The operation required that they be believed when they said they did not know. It required, in other words, that they actually not know. The design was not to deceive investigators. The design was to deceive the weapons themselves. And the design worked. It worked so well that the men who conceived it were sitting in Pyongyang before the body was cold. It worked so well that the country they served has never faced serious consequences. It worked so well that the two people who stood trial for the murder were the only two people in the entire operation who did not understand what they were doing. Siti Aisha thought she was on a prank show. Doan Thi Huang thought she was on a prank show. They were right in a sense that no one explained to them until it was too late. A prank is at its core a manipulation. A lie designed to produce a reaction. A use of one person's trust to achieve an effect the victim has not consented to. What happened in Terminal 2 on the morning of February 13th, 2017, was exactly that. It was just that the victim was not Kim Jong-nam. The victims were the two women who walked up behind him thinking they were about to become stars. If this is the kind of story you want to keep seeing, the ones buried under headlines, the ones where the real architects never sit in the dock, subscribe. It is how this channel stays alive.